Hello, my fellow adventurers! This is Mloentje, and welcome back to New World here in Rise of the Angry Earth. In the previous episode, we had to start off the main campaign quest, guys, because we couldn't ride our... Well, we couldn't go to the trainer in the new zone in the Elysian Wilds, because there was basically a barrier with toxic spores that would kill us if we instantly entered. Something similar that happened with Brimstone Sands. The heat was way too much, so we had to do a pre-quest to actually be able to get into Brimstone Sands. Here we needed to collect some spores to craft a tonic for ourselves. So we'd actually go in and we, well, basically completed the first of the campaign. Now we are able to actually get into Elysian Wilds, but we also obtained something. And that is, yeah, I was actually right, the Star of Great Morning, the Flail, the new weapon in the game, guys. Now, I've been spending a lot of time in the past 2 days actually trying to level this up to level 20. And I do have to say, although I read somewhere that weapon XP was increased, it took me way longer than it did with all other weapons. So I'm not really sure if they just... Because I went on my regular route here in the Brightwood Isles. So basically, I ran to the outside, went back in... stayed on the outside, island, on the inside, outside, and I did the bridges, and then basically ran. I did my run like I did with every other of my weapons that I leveled, guys. But it went way slower, so I'm not really sure what's going on. But it still worked. There were a lot of people leveling up their flails and other weapons as well, so kind of the rotations were kind of mixed up. But I got it done, and I do have to say, after well playing with this and leveling it up to 20. It is definitely a tank weapon, guys. And it can be main tank weapon, or it can be a really good support weapon. But I don't really feel that you can build it out. You probably can, in some way, build it out to a damage weapon, but it's not gonna outclass any other damage type weapons, guys. It's support and tank. That is basically it. So we've got a bunch of talents here, and I've never played tank, so I cannot give you the perspective of a tank. I can only give you the perspective of somebody who played it while actually using all the abilities and while leveling it up, right? So quickly go over Arcane Smite. Leap forward and strike the ground with arcane force, dealing 130% weapon damage to all targets within 2.7 meters of the impact. Leave behind an hazardous area at the impact point that inflicts a stack of impairment for 6 seconds to all targets that enter. An impairment deals 10% weapon damage per second and inflicts weaken. Reduces their base damage by 10%. So basically a 30%, because it's max stacks 3, a 30% damage reduction from the enemy towards you, which is really, really good. This ability has grit, so it prevents you from being staggered by incoming attack. So basically you never have to worry about using this ability and getting interrupted. That is really, really good. We got Epic Flail. Smite hits reduce its own cooldown by 5% per target hit. So if the AoE hits on 5 targets at the same time, you basically get a 25% reduction. Right now I have a cooldown of 16%, so that would mean that 4 seconds would go off, so I get it into a 12-second cooldown, right? We've got Ironclad Superiority. Grants a bonus based on what shield type is equipped. So this is also why this is actually a tank weapon or a support tank weapon. Now we don't have proper raids yet, where we have like multiple bosses that we have to deal with, so... Right now in this game, there's not really a mean for a main tank and an off tank. But if you have like a boss where you need to switch in between who tanks it, this could be a really good actual weapon for the off tank to use, because it brings a lot of versatility to the table, guys. So a round shield smite deals 20% more base weapon damage. This is also where I feel you can kind of make this into a damage weapon. Not like complete damage, like I said, it's not gonna outclass any other actual weapon, DPS weapons, but it might actually bring a little more DPS to the table than it initially does when with a round shield. For the kite shield, Smite now staggers targets hits, but the damage is reduced to 90% weapon damage instead of the 130%. So you get less damage, but you have an interrupt. Might be useful for PvP, so you get more interrupts on enemy players. And then the tower shield gained 30% fortify for 6 seconds when Smite is activated. With, for me, a 12-second cooldown, that means like every 6 seconds I can basically refresh this one to get 30% fortify. Now, there's a lot of means to get fortify in this game, guys. And 30% is a big chunk of fortify. So you do need to take into account that if you have a lot of perks and a lot of other abilities that give you Fortify, that you just don't overcap the cap for Fortify. I'm not really sure what the cap is, but 30% is a really big chunk, right? So definitely need to take that into account. And for the last one, Deflecting Frailty. Allies that enter the hazardous area obtain Deflecting Frailty for 3 seconds, which when attacked will inflict a stacking weaken to enemy attackers when hit, reducing the enemy's damage dealt by 5% per stack for 5 seconds, max 5 stacks. So this only brings in a 25% weaken, while this one, the actual first hit, will bring a 30% weaken. So it is lower, but is actually more used as you create an area where allies can stand in, and if there's multiple mobs that are hitting your group, all those mobs at the same time will be getting weakened when they're hitting your allies, right? Again, bringing a little bit more of like AoE control and lowering the output of all enemies that are in that range. But again, it's an AoE, so if you actually get it and the mob stands in that AoE section, they will get 30%. So it's still better to actually make them like impaired from the AoE that you leave on the ground than through the hits that the enemy will give you. And then additionally, while the effect is active, when allies are hit, they gain 10% lifesteal for 3 seconds. So again, more utility, guys. You can see this. Like, this is why I said, like, the utility on this weapon is really, really good. Deflecting Frailty scales with focus, increasing its duration up to 12 seconds. So, Deflecting Frailty, 12 seconds, guys. Arcane Smite, cooldown reduction, 12 seconds. So if you use a Flail, which I'm definitely gonna try, in a healer build, you can keep Deflecting Frailty up always. Like 24/7 Deflective Frailty will be active. That means everybody will keep getting lifesteal constantly. The enemies that hit your friendlies will keep getting that 25% weaken constantly. And this is really, really nice, of course. So yeah, let's take a look at how it actually looks, guys. So like I said, it's over at Slam. And then this is the area that it leaves. And as you can see, it leaves 139 damage. Now this weapon scales with as well strength as with focus. So if we go to character attributes, you can see here right now I'm kind of using the 100 con and the 338 strength from my build that I have. You can get a lot more perks right now, guys, but I didn't go for the gears yet that have like the better perk sets on them. So this is the max perks I can get right now at my level and my gear. And as you can see here, Flail and Shield damage scales with strength and focus. So I do wonder if we change to focus later on, how much damage we can actually do with this, right? But it's a really nice ability and definitely good if you go farming with it to level it up. It basically gives an AoE damage, and yeah, you can see it lasts a little bit longer than the AoE actually stands. Next talent. Let's quickly take a look. So we've got Arcane Vortex. Swirls the flail above the player's heads, dealing 4 rapid hits of 75% of the weapon damage in a 3 meter radius around the player. It's actually a pretty good radius around the player, like that's 6 meters in total that you can cover. After the first spin is complete, trigger a 3 meter blast of energy, granting 10% in power for 5 seconds to all allies inside the radius. Again, it gives bonuses to your allies, and again, this is why it's such a versatile weapon, guys. This ability also has grids, preventing you from being staggered by incoming attacks. So really nice. We got the Flail Bird. Hitting targets 4 times with Arcane Vortex will inflict them with root, immobilizing them for 1 second. So it's kind of got like a, not a stun, but a root on them. All AoE, so if you got a lot of mobs on you, you just pulled an entire group of mobs as a tank, and you basically swing this one around. All mobs will be in their spot for 1 second. So pretty good one. Hitting a target with Arcane Vortex grants stacking haste on self, increasing movement speed by 7% for 7 seconds, max 4 stacks. So that is 28 seconds, or 28% movement speed for 7 seconds. I don't think the seconds are gonna get increased, it's just the percentage. Allies within the radius of the attack are granted a 25% haste. Again, giving your allies a lot of like movement speed to run away from the fight if they are getting hit, or out of the boss. If it's, for instance, the boss that you're hitting, then basically everybody that needs to get away from an ability that the boss is gonna do, they got 25% haste to get the hell out of there. So really good again. And then Flail stability. All allies within 3 meters of the player during the Arcane Vortex are cleansed of crowd control status effects root, stun, slow, and are immune for them by 1 second. All allies inside are also healed for 65% weapon damage. Healing scales exclusively with focus. The crowd control immunity scales with focus, increasing its duration up to 5 seconds. And this is why I'm thinking that instead of like the Void Gauntlets or the Rapier, I might be considering taking the Scale Cleric side as my offhand for my healer build, guys. I think you can make a really good one. Now, there is a downside because, well, we only have like one ability in here, and that is the Ironclad Superiority. You kind of want to equip a shield for this one, right? You can play with it without a shield. There's no issue with that. But you kind of want to play it. But what is the downside of playing with a shield? But basically, if you go for... Well, right now I'm a strength build. Usually you go for a light loadout, right? With a shield, you need to go all light gear to actually get the light loadout. And you're going to lose a lot of armor. Meaning you're going to be a whole lot more vulnerable as a healer in fights. So I don't think you want to use a shield with the Flail if you're actually going to use it as a support weapon for a healer build. I kind of need to check that out because, well, with a shield, it also means you can block with the shield and that prevents you from taking damage. So it has like a two-way function that it can work, right? So definitely need to check that out and play with it further. But yeah, like I said, this is just me leveling it up and looking at all the perks. So let's quickly take a look at the... And as you can see here, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,300. And again, because this weapon actually has, what was it? Keenly Jagged. The damage that you saw right now was actually the bleed, the critical hit bleed. Because I did a critical hit at the last hit. So basically I did 10% weapon damage. Those were the ticks you saw there. But it's a really nice one and it looks really incredible. Now let's lower the cooldown. And the area of effect is really, really good. The area of effect is like really, really good. But so much versatility, guys. Can we lower that cooldown a little more? And you can see the range of it, right? Like it is a huge range. And this is also why you want to use this while your group or your players that you want to actually give those buffs to are actually like all grouped up together. It's a big area, but you still need to pay attention that everybody, once you actually want to apply those boosts to players, the increased empowerment, that basically everybody can get it, right? So on to the next character. Yeah, like I said, I'm gonna be clicking around a lot. The next one is Arcane Eruption. Drag the head of the flail against the ground, causing an eruption of arcane energy in front of the player, dealing 120 weapon damage and inflicting 2 stacks of impairment for 6 seconds to all targets hit. Automatically follows up with an additional melee attack that deals 150% weapon damage. So in this tree, that is the biggest hit you can do. That's the biggest attack damage that you can do. Impairment deals 10% weapon damage per second and inflicts weaken, reducing their base stat. So it's the same one as we got with the Smite, guys. It's the 30% weaken that you can actually give it. It goes into Crippling Strike. Targets hit with the first attack of burst are slowed, reducing their movement speed by 40% for 3 seconds. Like, a lot of these skills are gonna be so good in wars. They're all AoE skills. So if a tank actually with a flail runs to the capture objective in a war and actually slams on the ground and can get like a whole bunch of... They're weakened, they're slowed, you are gonna get a boost for all your allies, they're gonna get healing on top of there. Like, it's insane, guys. The utility that Cleric can give to the game, that is truly insane. The follow-up attacks extend the duration of all debilitated status effects, rend, weaken, exhaust, and disease on the target. So if there's any status effects on the actual player or the enemy, 30% increase on all the timers. Again, a lot of versatility in here. And then we got Supportive Blessing. The follow-up deck consumes 1 stack of impairment on a target hit, triggering a chain that will bounce up to 4 times to allies within 6 meters of a player, granting 130% of its total damage as health to each ally it chains to, and 50% of its total damage to self. Healing skills exclusively with Focus. Now, I haven't played this with Focus, and I haven't played this in group, so I cannot tell you how big the heal actually is. Like, again, I need to work on that later on. Probably the first time I'm going to use this is in an OPR. To check out how the healing works and an actual Focus build. And after I did that, and I got some footage of that, I can basically bring, like, is this weapon any good to be support healing or not? But so far, it's looking good. It's a chain heal, guys. It heals 4 players and basically yourself for 50%. And it actually gives you the 130%, like the highest. No, it's not the highest. The highest was 150, but it's still almost one of the highest damages that the weapon can do, right? So really, really nice in there. Let's quickly take a look. As the description said, it's like a smack to the ground, and then it flails up with a smack to the head. Looks pretty good. You can see here, 2,575, guys. And then we got the Arcane Impairment ticking there, and we got our Leech on there as well. So overall, I do feel that you can make this into a semi-damage build, but it's not gonna be all that, like, heavy. Like, these are heavy attacks that I'm doing right now, and if you go with damage weapons, you already know you can get to, like, 4, 5, 6, 10k damage hits if you really build it up properly, and you get, like, the real good boosts in there and everything. But so far, 2,500 is not that bad, right? Let's go to the rest of them we've got. Let's quickly change them up, of course. Can I not? Oh, while in combat? Why am I in combat? Come on, let me change. There we go. Let's take this one and this one. So for Bastion, this is like the tank build. This is also where the taunts are at. So sprint forward up to 10 meters. Upon reactivating the ability, pressing basic attack or reaching the end of the sprint, you leap forward to up an additional 6 meters and slam the ground, dealing 30% weapon damage to targets in range of the flail during the leap, and 80% weapon damage upon landing, staggering targets on impact. Character collision is disabled while sprinting forward, so there is no character collision. You can sprint through everybody. Taunt Gem is compatible. If you have a Carnelian Gem equipped in your flail, this ability inflicts taunt for 6 seconds when it hits. The taunt causes monsters to focus only on you. So yeah, this is the tank setup of this weapon, guys. We go into Defensive Rush. Hitting a target when any of the barrages hit will grant a 30% Fortify. The Fortify has a 2% duration, and every hit extends the duration of the status effects by 2% to a max of 8 seconds. Moving to targets with the Bulldoze upgrade will also extend the duration of the effect. So Defense Rush, you basically run through a bunch of enemies and it gives you a 30% Fortify. We got Abiding Superiority. Grants a bonus to Barrage based on what shield type you equipped. Again, what shield you're using is how the flail will work. Really, really interesting way of working with this weapon, guys. A barrage hits for 30% more base weapon damage. Again, you can build this a little bit more into a damage build with this perk here, going with a round shield. For a guide shield, barrage hits inflict a 20% slow for 4 seconds. This will also slow the targets moved through with the bulldoze upgrade. Tower shield, barrage gains grit while active. So if you actually rush through with your barrage, you cannot be stopped anymore. Definitely really, really good, right? We got the bulldoze effect. A barrage can now block attacks while charging forwards without consuming stamina, and will push all enemies move through to the side. This was definitely useful if I wanted to gather up like a lot of enemies, to actually gather them up and actually impact them and get them together before I kill them to level this weapon up, guys. And then we got the last one, Failure to Launch. Barrage attacks now trigger a 2.5 meter blast of energy around the target on hit, dealing a 35 weapon damage to all nearby targets and granting Fortify to all allies within the radius, increasing armor by 20% for 8 seconds. So again, there is like the utility on this weapon, I cannot say it enough, the utility on this weapon is enormous. There isn't a weapon in this entire game that gives so many buffs to allies. Like, this is definitely really, really interesting. So, a 20% fortify with everybody, guys, and you get an AoE barrage attack for 35% of the weapon damage. So, yeah, let's quickly take a look. So we're gonna need to stand back a little, because 10 meters is actually a pretty lengthy space. You run forward, and at the end, you slam down on it. And there we go. That's the bleed again. So it doesn't really do a lot of damage, but it's really versatile, because you can... Let's quickly get the timer back as fast as possible. Because now I actually let the ability run its course, but you can also, if you instantly click it, you can instantly activate it. You do not need to run the 10 meters. If you just double press the attack, you instantly start with the slam. But what you don't do is actually hit all the enemies that you would actually charge through. So for instance, in a war, if they are keeping a lot of the gates closed, like the gate, you broke down the gate and there's like 20 people in front and you cannot get in because there's a couple guys with shields there. Well, basically with this ability, you basically just rush through everybody, slam your way into the middle, and you start off with the rest of your combo, right? And this is a great way to actually press through, like, outpost rush, trash pass into those outposts that people are blocking off, or their ice barrage. I'm not really sure if ice... Well, it's got grit, so it can be stopped or slowed, right? It can be interrupted. So, really, really good ability, guys. And for the damage, 1374 with full strength. If we look at the... Well, not full strength. You can go higher right now. I think you can even go to 400 or 500 right now in the game. So definitely, it's not the max that it can do, but it's a good terrain to see where the damage lies, right? All right, next ability, we've got Trip. Swing the flail forward, latching onto a target, dealing 50% weapon damage and knocking them to the ground. Simple as that. It's a single target. I think, so far as I can see it, it's the only single target ability in this entire setup of the flail. Like, all of the abilities are AoE based. Only this one is single target. Tripping a target applies a special debuff to the target lasting 3 seconds. Allies that hit the affected enemy will reduce the duration of all damage over time effects on themselves by 10% hit while active. So, you hit somebody with Trip. Other people that have bleed on them, that have weaken on them, that have any debuff on them, and they start hitting that enemy, that boss or whatever it is, they basically are gonna get rid. So it's kind of like a self-cleanse over a period of time. Like, again, the utility. Holy crap. You've got Flail. The names of these skills, guys. It's cracking me up. Hitting weakened targets with Trip will inflict 15% rend for 5 seconds on the target. And grants a 15% fortify on self. 5 seconds. Rend decreases armor, fortify increases armor. So you can decrease the armor, and then with other perks you can weaken them so they do less damage, and you can give yourself more, and you can heal yourself. Like, you see where this weapon is going, right? Like, holy crap. And then we got Destabilize. Adds a follow-up heavy attack that deals 145 weapon damage, guys. So kind of want to check that one out, because I don't think I actually used that one. And where's the follow-up attack? Because it was a heavy attack, I thought, like, okay, it's gonna be a swing or something, but I didn't really see anything. Let's do that again against the targets this time. 71. So the initial swing doesn't actually hurt. I'm in combat right now. Get out of combat. That is a strange one. That's a follow-up heavy attack that deals... Well, I only need to take this and this, right? Let's do that without the upgrade. Let's see what happens. It's doing more damage. Oh my god. Where is the follow-up heavy attack? Well, there's supposed to be a follow-up heavy attack, guys, but I cannot see it for the life of me. And then we got a warding bludgeon, guys. Performs a spinning leap, then swing the flail down to strike targets, dealing 100% weapon damage. While leaping, triggers a burst of energy, granting a reinforced fortify to self and all allies within 3 meters of the player, increasing armor by 50%. Like a 50% armor increase for 8 seconds or until 3 hits are taken. This ability has grit. Grit prevents you from being staggered. Taunt Gem is compatible if you have a Carnelian Gem equipped in your flail. This ability inflicts taunt for 8 seconds to all enemies within 8 meters. So it's a really big AoE taunt that you can get with warding bludgeons, guys. We got stable impairment. Stamina damage is taken is reduced by 25% for 0.5 seconds after activating the block. Additionally, blocking hits while the reinforced fortify for warding bludgeon is active will inflict a stack of impairment for 6 seconds on the attacker, dealing 10% weapon damage and weakening them, reducing their base damage by 10%. So this gives a 10% damage tick on them, and it reduces their base damage with 10%, and it stacks to do. So 30% less damage that they do to you, and they receive a 30% impairment tick on themselves. I don't think I need to say what you guys you guys don't know what I'm gonna say. The utility, holy crap! And we've got best friends. Upon ability activation, a nearby ally within 6 meters is selected, and you become linked to them. While the connection is active, you gain Empower, increasing their base damage by 15%, and you both gain damage absorption. Reduces damage taken by 10% for 8 seconds, or until players are more than 6 meters apart from each other. And this is also why I was saying at the start that later on, if we are gonna get raids in this game, and there's gonna be like a boss where the main tank and the off tank need to switch in between who is actually taunting the boss, who is actually tanking the boss. With this ability, you can link each other, the OT and the MT, for actually both taking less damage while they're standing in front of the boss. Like, this is also why I'm saying, like, the utility towards endgame, where you're gonna need more than one tank, is tremendous, guys. Like, it is really, really good. It has heal in them, it has support in them, it has buffs, debuffs, it has everything that a weapon can have to offer. It's not... I cannot say as a tank perspective that's gonna be the best tanking weapon out there. As a healer, I probably can say that it's not gonna be the best healing out there. That's still gonna be the life staff. But support-wise, I'm definitely a fan of trying to use this weapon, like, holy crap. Now, we do have 2 ultimates, of course. Better Together, while within 4 meters of 1 or more allies, grants a passive healing to self and all allies that heal for 16% weapon damage over 3 seconds. So, holy crap. So, every ally that is within 4 meters from yourself, get a passive healing to self. And all allies that heal for 16% weapon damage every 3 seconds. Again, this is why I say that I need to test this one out in OPR, guys. And see actually how big the heals can get if you go like full focus. And actually use all the proper healing abilities that are in here. And on the Bastion side, we've got hitting a target with an ability while in 6 meters of an ally. Applies a status effect, link yourself and a single ally to each other for 5 seconds. While the effect is active, the ally will only take 50% of the incoming damage and cause you to inherit 35% of the incoming damage that they didn't take. Again, a tank kind of taking away the damage from the DPS players or the heal players or the OT, like the off tank that is standing next to him. I can see this like being the OT's main weapon of choice if there's ever gonna be a raid where we need OTs. We got a bunch of small perks, guys. Oppressive advantage. Abilities and heavy attacks hits against a target with less than 50% health grant 5 anointed and 10 haste to self for 3 seconds. Anointed power scales with focus, increasing its power up to 20%. Anointed increases the amount of health gained when healed. Haste increases movement speed. So basically 5%, and then with focus 20% increased healing that everybody is gonna get. Not everybody, you yourself is gonna get from all heals. Like, that is really, really good. We got weighted superiority, grants cooldown reduction based on actions performed in different equip loaders. So in heavy, gets a 1% cooldown reduction when hit or blocking a hit, a 0.5% cooldown. A medium loadout, cooldown reduction when dodging an attack, 5% cooldown when reduction when dodging an attack, and light, 1% cooldown reduction when hitting a target. So when you hit, you basically 1% off, 1% off, 1% off. Like, this is, again, really good. Definitely a perk I suggest you take. Happily Flails, hitting a target with a basic attack within 3 seconds of using an ability will inflict exhaust, reducing stamina regen rate to the target by 50% for 5 seconds. So they are less likely to get their stamina back full if you actually keep hitting them with basic attacks, guys. Then Vital Embrace, while at or 50% health, all flail attacks grant 3% lifesteal while attacking targets. Max 3 targets. So if you attack 3 targets at the same time, you're basically gonna get like 3% healing from all of them. While above 50% health, all flail attacks extend the duration of damage over time effects on the target by 7%. The bleeds, the rends, the exhausts, like everything you can place on them. If you're above 50% health and all attacks from the flail increase the bleeds and exhausts and the, like, holy crap. Even as a healer, this is incredibly good to use. Like, if you can, like, if somebody plays, like, the enemy takes less healing, and you can keep that stacking up, and they cannot get rid of it anymore, instead of, like, they have to cleanse themselves somehow, then really amazing. We got Leader of the Pack. When no allies are within 5 meters, all flail attacks deal 10% more base damage. Again, working a little bit more on how you can make this a little bit into a damage weapon, guys. When more I'm talking for 30 minutes and my words are gonna get across right now. When 1 or more allies are within 5 meters, they gain Empower, increasing their damage dealt by 5%. So again, if you're standing in a group, guys, basically everybody's gonna get more attack. And if you're single, you're gonna do more attack. Really, really nice. We've got Spiky Impairments. Being hit, or blocking a hit from a melee attack while above 90% health inflicts a stack of impairment for 6 seconds on the attacker, dealing 10% weapon damage per second and inflicting weaken, reducing their base damage. So basically every time somebody is attacking you, they get, again, where was it here? I think it was here. Yeah, the impairment. So they're getting less damage output and they're gonna take more damage, and they're gonna take damage over time. Like, it's just incredible, guys. On the Bastion side, we've got while at or above 50% health, reduces damage taken by 4%, while below 50% health, reduces the attacker's stamina damage dealt while blocking by 10%. So if you're below 50% health and you block with your shields, the other side is not gonna drain your stamina as fast as they normally do. Really get yourself back up to that above 50%, right? Crude Flailments. The first target hit with a heavy attack within 3 seconds of using an ability will cleanse 1 stack of any debuff from self, and will also inflict a stack of impairment for 6 seconds to the target hits, dealing 10% weapon damage per second and weakening them, reducing their base damage by 10%. So you can see this one here, the impairment together with the weaken is like 3 times in this build. So you don't need to take this ability 3 times because it's not gonna stack. But there's a lot of ways to get that ability actually working on your build, right? We got the Reduction Superiority, grants status effects duration modifications on self based on what shield type is equipped. The round shield increases the duration of all limited duration buffs on the player by 10%. The cat shield decreases duration of damage over time and debilitating effects on player by 10%. And the tower shield decreases the duration of crowd control effects on the player by 10%. So really nice there. We got Flail Mary. While stamina is at or below 30%, activating an ability will grant you stamina. 5-second cooldown. So you can passively get a couple more stamina quickly back if you actually use your abilities if you're too low. When blocking a hit, gain a 3-second tracking status effect. Every block hit extend the duration of the status effect by 3 seconds to a max of 9 seconds. And while the effect is active, gain variable damage absorption based on the current health percentage and equipped load. So heavy, 5% absorption at full health increases to a maximum of 20% mitigation as health decreases. Medium, 3% absorption at full health increases to a max of 13% mitigation as health decreases. And light loadout, 1% absorption at full health increasing to a max of 7% mitigation as the health decreases, guys. And then Reinforced Vitality increases your max health by 25% of your physical armor rating while the flail is equipped. This, I think in heavy that's gonna be around, let's say 500 HP. So not really, it's not really gonna be useful. I think it's around 500 600 HP that you get. But yeah, there we go, guys. I don't think I showed you the last ability yet because I didn't have it equipped. So let's quickly take a look at how that one looks, of course. And I should actually invest a point for that. Assign. There we go. And that kind of looks something like this. A 1700 hit, and then the reinforce with 30% on ourselves, guys. That's gonna be it. 35 minutes of me yapping on about the flail. But I'm really excited. It has a lot of potential, guys. I'm really looking forward to seeing how I'm not really the build type. I like to play around with it, but I'm not a player that actually goes around making build videos on how it works and what everything does. But this weapon really had my curiosity piqued because I play mainly healer and it has healing abilities. So of course this is gonna pique my interest. But for now, guys, I'm gonna sit my ass down. I'm gonna actually take a little bit of a drink and a pause, catch my breath, and start recording on the next chapter of our main story campaign, guys, because we want to see where that goes as well. If you want to see where my quest progression here in New World or my, well, let's play here in New World brings me, or any other game I might be playing on my channel now or in the future, just hit that subscribe button. It would always help out a lot. I do hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.